The moment her behavior starts changing around you, something deeper has already shifted. So if you are here right now, take a breath and stay with me. And if this kind of message speaks to you, subscribe to the channel. What we talk about here is not about mind games. It is not about manipulation. It is about understanding yourself so deeply that the people around you begin responding to you differently, without force, without performance, without noise. Now let's begin. There is a version of you that most people never fully see. A version that is steady, a version that is grounded, a version that is not chasing anything, a version that has done the quiet work, the kind of work nobody applauds, the kind that happens early in the morning when no one is watching, the kind that happens when you choose discipline over distraction, silence over pointless argument, progress over approval. And when that version of you starts to rise, the atmosphere changes. People feel it before they can explain it, and the woman in your life feels it too. Not because of some clever move you made, not because of a line you said, not because you learned a trick, because of who you have quietly become. This is not about keeping a woman, it is not about tactics, it is not about winning, it is about something much more important. It is about recognizing the signs that appear when another person genuinely values your presence. When they sense, even if they cannot explain it, that losing you would mean losing something real, something rare, something not easily replaced. These are not game signals. They are human signals. They are signs of value, signs of connection, signs that your presence carries real weight. And learning to understand them is not about ego, it is about clarity, because clarity protects peace, and confusion is expensive. Most men lose too much peace trying to interpret what should have been seen clearly. So let's begin with the first sign. She pays attention differently. Not casual attention, not polite attention, not the kind people give when they are half listening, the deeper kind. She remembers small things. She notices when something feels off before you even say a word. She catches subtle changes in your mood. She pays attention carefully, not in a controlling way, but in the way people watch what matters to them. Think about the things you pay attention to in your own life. Your health, your money, your work, the future you are trying to build. You pay close attention to the things you cannot afford to lose. And that kind of attention is never random. It always comes from values. So when a woman begins noticing you on that level, she is telling you something without saying it. She is telling you that you matter to her enough for your condition, your energy, and your state of being to register in her mind. And that kind of care is never casual. Care is intentional. Care is one of the quietest forms of respect. But here is what matters. That kind of attention is earned. Not by showing off, not by performing, not by trying to make yourself seem important. It is earned by consistency, by being the same man in private that you are in public, by saying what you mean and meaning what you say, by not folding under pressure, by having integrity when no one is watching. A man who has built real substance in himself does not have to announce it. He becomes the kind of man people naturally pay attention to. Not because he asked for it, because he quietly earned it over time. That is the first sign, real attention. The second sign is this: her tone becomes softer when there is tension. This one is subtle, but it means more than many men realize. Most people become sharper during conflict, louder, more reactive, more interested in winning than understanding. Conflict makes people feel threatened, and when people feel threatened, they often reach for force. But when a woman is truly afraid of losing a man she values, something changes in the way she speaks. She becomes more careful, not fake, not weak, not passive. Careful in the way people become careful with something they know matters. Her tone softens. She becomes less interested in being right and more interested in protecting the connection. She wants resolution more than victory. That is not weakness. That is value showing itself through restraint. Because when something matters to someone, they stop handling it carelessly. But again, this only happens when the value is real. If she does not value you deeply, conflict stays cheap. Words stay careless. She can say almost anything and move on easily because nothing inside her feels truly at risk. But when something real is at risk, speech becomes more careful. This is one of the invisible effects of a man who has done the work on himself. He changes the emotional math of the relationship, not by threatening to leave, not by becoming cold, not by playing unavailable, but by being a man with a real life, real standards, real direction, and a real identity beyond the relationship. When that energy is present, the people around him begin understanding something even if they never say it out loud. Their behavior matters. The softening of tone in hard moments is one of the clearest signs that your value is recognized. That is sign 2. Now the third sign: she creates reasons to be close to you, not always in dramatic ways, usually in quiet ways. She extends conversations that could have ended earlier. She finds reasons to be in the same room. She reaches out without a practical reason. She creates proximity. And proximity speaks. People move toward what feels good, what feels safe, what feels stable, what feels valuable, and they move away from what does not. So when a woman keeps choosing your presence, your time, your space, that choice is telling you something. She wants to be near you, not because she has to, not because of obligation, because being near you gives her something. Maybe peace, maybe warmth, maybe clarity, maybe steadiness, maybe all of it together. And those things are rare. This is not the same as unhealthy clinginess. A woman moving from fear clings out of anxiety, but a woman who genuinely values a man moves toward him out of appreciation. There is a huge difference. One feels heavy, the other feels free. A man who is paying attention can feel that difference. He can tell when someone is near him because they are empty, and when someone is near him because they truly enjoy what his presence gives them. And this is where a man's own life matters deeply. When a man has purpose, standards, structure, and direction, he becomes naturally scarce. Not fake scarce, real scarce. Because his time is occupied, because he is living, because he is building, because he is not endlessly available to anyone at any time. And real scarcity creates appreciation. What is always available is rarely treasured. So when your presence has to be chosen, earned, and valued, it becomes more meaningful. That is sign 3. She creates proximity because your presence means something. Now let's go to the 4th sign. She becomes more transparent. When a woman truly values a man and senses that losing him would matter, she often starts becoming more honest, not less. She shares more. She lets more of herself be seen. She becomes less guarded. Why? Because the possibility of loss makes superficial connection feel insufficient. If this person might not always be here, she wants the connection to be real while it exists. That means the mask starts slipping. Most people spend a lot of time performing in relationships. They present the version of themselves they think will be accepted. They manage perception. They protect image. They hide uncertainty, and that performance gets exhausting. But when a man has shown himself to be safe in the right way, safe through strength, safe through steadiness, safe through integrity, something in the people around him relaxes. They stop performing as much. The real person begins stepping forward. If she is telling you things she does not tell others, if she lets herself be imperfect around you, if she stops trying to impress and starts showing you who she really is, then she is telling you something powerful. She values your opinion. She trusts your character. She believes losing your respect would matter. A man who can hold that kind of trust is a rare man. Not because he is perfect, because he is honest, because he is steady, because he does not weaponize vulnerability, because he knows how to receive another person's openness without turning it into control, judgment, or leverage. That kind of man is built through his own self-work, through healing what is broken inside him instead of throwing it onto others, through choosing integrity over impulse, through becoming trustworthy before asking anyone to trust him. That is sign 4, transparency that grows out of trust. And now sign 5. She is more affected by your approval and by your distance. When a woman genuinely values a man, his emotional state matters to her. If he is proud of her, she feels it. If he is disappointed, she feels that too. If he pulls back even a little, she notices. She becomes more aware of the emotional weather between the two of you. That is not manipulation. That is emotional significance. When someone truly matters, their presence and absence both register deeply. They become a point of reference in your emotional world. Compare that with a man who has made himself too available, too eager, too small, too focused on keeping the peace no matter what. In that dynamic, his approval means very little. His distance means very little. Why? Because he has never established the quiet authority that comes from self-respect. A man with standards creates a different emotional experience. When he approves, it carries meaning. When he becomes distant, it is felt. Not because he is trying to control anyone, because he has built real value into his presence. A man who does not throw his energy everywhere becomes a man whose energy matters when it is given. So when your mood, your warmth, your distance, and your approval begin affecting her more deeply, that is not random. That is sign 5. Your presence carries weight. Now step back and look at the full picture. These signs are not tricks. They are not techniques. You cannot fake them. They appear naturally around a man who has done the internal work. A man who has chosen growth over comfort, clarity over chaos, self-respect over validation, discipline over drifting. Most men were never taught to value themselves first in a healthy way. They were taught to perform, to prove, to be useful enough to be kept, to seek approval so hard that they lost all sense of who they were apart from it. And that creates a quiet kind of suffering. A man wakes up wondering if he is enough, wondering if people approve, wondering if he is doing enough to hold someone's attention. That suffering shows up in relationships. Too much availability, too little direction, too much people-pleasing, too little self-knowledge. The work of becoming the kind of man who creates these signs in the people around him is not glamorous. It happens in ordinary moments, when you choose the harder path, when you keep your standards even when comfort would be easier, when you tell the truth even when a softer lie would help you avoid conflict, when you stop shrinking to fit places that were too small for you. It happens when you begin treating your time as sacred. When you stop apologizing for your standards, when you realize that the quality of your life is shaped far more by your own choices than by someone else's opinion of you. It happens when you get honest about where you have been settling, the relationships where you have been more useful than respected, the habits that have made you weaker than you were meant to be, the patterns that have kept you small. And then without making an announcement, without trying to impress anyone, you begin changing. That process is mostly invisible. Nobody sees the morning you decided to start. Nobody sees the night you sat with discomfort instead of escaping it. Nobody sees the moment you chose yourself with honesty for the first time in a long while. But it all adds up, and one day the people in your life start responding differently. A woman who once handled your time carelessly becomes more careful. A woman who once barely noticed your absence begins to feel it. A woman who once stayed guarded begins opening up more. And in all of these ways, you start recognizing that your presence has become something real. Not because you played a part, because you built something inside yourself. And real things always carry weight. Now, let's say something uncomfortable. Some men will hear all of this and feel frustration because they have been doing the work. They have been growing. And still, the relationship they are in does not reflect any of these signs. Her behavior has not changed. The dynamic has not deepened. The respect has not grown. And the hard truth is this: sometimes a relationship was built around the old version of you. And when you start changing, the relationship does not always change with you. Some relationships quietly depend on you staying small. And when you stop being small, the whole structure starts resisting your growth. This is not about leaving people in a dramatic way. It is about honesty. It is about seeing clearly whether a relationship is growing with you or quietly pulling against the man you are becoming. A man who is serious about his life cannot sacrifice his growth just to keep a dynamic that was built for a weaker version of him. Not because he is arrogant, because he has integrity. He understands that if he keeps shrinking to preserve comfort, eventually he will become someone he no longer respects. And that cost is too high. Growth must remain non-negotiable. Any relationship worth having must be able to hold your evolution. Anything less becomes slow erosion. So build carefully. Choose relationships that reflect your standards. And never go backward just for the comfort of being accepted by people who only knew how to value your smaller self. You have done too much work for that. The life available to the man you are becoming is too meaningful to trade away for temporary comfort. And that brings us to the deepest point. These signs are not the goal. They are only a byproduct. The real goal is becoming the kind of man who lives with integrity, a man who knows himself, a man who acts from values instead of emotional panic, a man who has trained his mind, his body, and his character towards something real. A man who is at peace in his own presence. A man who can sit in silence without needing noise to escape himself. That man does not obsess over whether he is valued. He does not have to constantly analyze behavior because he has already proven his worth to himself. Quietly, repeatedly, in private ways no one else will ever fully see. And that private proof is stronger than any outside validation. When you build that relationship with yourself, everything else starts to follow. The right people are drawn to your steadiness, the wrong people fall away, and your life slowly begins reflecting the quality of the man you have become inside. That is the work. That is the only work that truly matters. Everything else is just a reflection of it. So stay grounded, stay honest, stay committed to the man you are becoming, and never trade your integrity for the approval of someone who has not earned the right to define your worth. If this message reached something in you, subscribe to the channel. Stay close to these conversations, because the work of becoming your strongest self deserves the right company along the way. This is a place for men who are serious about the work, serious about themselves, and serious about the life they are building. Subscribe and keep going.